Hey folks, welcome to Your Basket is Empty. This is the YouTube channel. What is Your Basket is Empty? We are equal parts content and consulting. On the consulting side, we work with digital agencies to help them grow and scale by offering fractional director services. And on the content front, we aim to inform, inspire, and entertain the modern commerce community. We do that with events, a newsletter, and this podcast. On this episode, we are chatting with Dr. Simon Chard, co-founder of PÄRLA toothpaste tabs, and we touch on disrupting dentistry. We discuss transitioning from dentistry to D2C founder, the power of indirect marketing, the pros and cons of appearing on Dragon's Den, taking on the FMCG giants, and how to change the habits of every single person on the planet. Enjoy. Simon, welcome to the pod. How are you and where are you?
I am in Surrey, and I'm very well. Very well. A bit hot today, but can't complain. Very British to complain about the weather. So enjoying the last of the summer.
I mean, like a late summer, right? Crazy. I mean, the end of September. Where in Cobham are you? Where are you in Surrey? My sister's in Cobham.
I'm very near Cobham. So yeah, not far from there. So just down the road. So I'm sure you know the area well.
I do. They've sort of recently moved as of like a year ago, and I've been down there a bunch of times. I've got a Gales, which is always a good, indication of a nice suburb. Like that is usually, universally a good sign. And a Waitrose, So yeah, what more do you need? That's my mind.
That's it. I can go and check out PÄRLA in my local Waitrose. So that makes me happy. That was actually
nice.
the day that I knew I made it, because my mum shops at Waitrose, and we've always lived around here. So when I made it on the shelves of Waitrose, that was the seminal moment for my family, that I've actually got a real thing here and not just a little hobby that I play around with.
Nice, that's good. Well, we'll get on to retail strategy in a little bit, but I usually like to start these things with a little bit of a rewind. And I'm curious, just tell us a little bit about the story behind PÄRLA and what inspired you to create the brand.
Yeah, so myself and my two co-founders were friends, also all cosmetic dentists in London, quite high-profile dentists. So my co-founder Rona is sort of an influencer in her own right. She's got about 120,000 followers on Instagram, and very, very proficient cosmetic dentist, treats a lot of celebs. She was doing a lot of work with Sensodyne and Philips, sort of promoting their products. Myself, I'm the current president of the British Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. I was voted the person who's had the biggest impact on UK dentistry for 2022 last year. So I like to say we're dentists, but not just any dentists. We're sort of high-profile dentists that were being used by the big brands to sell their products. So I was on the Oral-B TV advert in 2018, 2019. So we had all that going on. And the weird thing within the dental industry is that these big brands come in when you're still students, and they sort of indoctrinate you with their products and their research and their branding and their freebies, and they give you the free toothbrushes and all that sort of thing. And so when you first come out of university, that's all you know, really. And all you know is that there are other sort of eco hippie toothpaste brands out there, but most of them take the fluoride out, and actually they don't really work. So your general standing for most dentists across the UK anyway is just use one of the big brands. They're safe. Do you know what I mean? But we were all living very sustainable lives in our own personal lives, using reusable water bottles and trying to remove plastic, trying to remove bad ingredients from all of the products that we've been using, eating a clean diet, all of those sort of things. And I think we realized as a group of friends that actually we were doing all this in our personal lives, but not living it in our professional lives. And we were giving out these single-use plastic toothpaste tubes like it was going out of fashion. And I think the sentiment and the line that really penetrated through for me was when I found out that every tube of toothpaste I'd ever used still exists somewhere on the planet. And that wow. 20 billion of them go into landfill in the ocean each year. So if you think about every tube of toothpaste that you've ever used, I'm sure you now use PÄRLA, it's shocking when you think about it in those terms. So from there, we took a year in R&D working on this toothpaste tablet formulation. And so the toothpaste tablet means that we can do away with the tube completely. It's a glass jar with an aluminium lid, refillable with compostable plant-based bags. And we set out on this sort of DTC journey creating a cool brand. As we were discussing off camera before we started, sort of spending a lot of time and money on the branding to create a really cool brand that dentists and customers, in my head I always call them patients, but customers would align with and want to go with as a disruptor in the space, but also trust them, because what we found is that people aren't willing to sacrifice their oral health for the planet. They don't want to risk their smile. They don't want to risk having to go for fillings and root canals and that sort of thing at the dentist to save the planet. So we felt we were in the perfect position as high profile dentists to create a brand that actually stood for sustainability and ethics and proper clean ingredients, but also effective and truly works. And that's where the name PÄRLA came from. PÄRLA means pearl in Swedish, which is, we thought, the perfect reflection of the two sides of the brand. Pearl of the ocean being that we created the brand to protect the ocean for the next generation from single-use plastic, and then pearly white smile being that we're all dentists and we care about smiles and white teeth and all of those sort of fun things. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a background on how it all came together.
That's a great synopsis. Now, this is going to be a very silly question. How do the tabs actually work? So how does it in reality replace the toothpaste? Talk me through that.
So toothpaste is clearly a paste. It wasn't always a paste. That's something that came in latter years. It actually used to be a powder that you dip your toothbrush in, but that wasn't very hygienic. So what we've done with toothpaste tablets is it's a dehydrated toothpaste in essence. So it works in exactly the same way as your paste, but instead of putting it on your brush, you pop it in your mouth, you chew on it for 5 seconds, it turns into a paste in your mouth, and then you brush away as normal. So it's just changing the delivery. But the beauty of that is it means no more squeezing out the bottom of the toothpaste tube, no more crusty toothpaste tube that you sort of squirrel away when you have friends coming around, no more arguing over who had the last bit of toothpaste. We always say with PÄRLA, it's never run out of toothpaste again, because obviously it's done on subscription. Although we're now in retail as well. But also we wanted to create an icon of the bathroom that actually you would have sitting on your bathroom shelf and be really proud of it instead of wanting to hide it away. So that's why we spent so much time on all the illustrations and all the branding and everything. That's how you use it. And then obviously now we have a chewable mouthwash tab, we have plastic-free floss, we have a fully compostable bamboo brush. So we've sort of broadened out the SKU range of sustainable oral care products.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'd love to get on in a second to other brands that are disrupting the kind of the bathroom with single-use plastic. So the Fussies, the Wilds, people like that, and how you guys fit into that ecosystem. But before that, I'm curious, how have you found the transition to high-profile dentists into kind of direct-to-consumer land? Like, because I'm curious. Like, if you and your co-founders were used to working with brands and selling their products, one could assume there's a lot of crossover, but it is a very different world, right? You are the brand now, and so I'm curious, like, what have you learned? What's been the assumptions that you've made?
So much. I mean, certainly when we started the brand, we never thought we'd get to this stage. I mean, the roller coaster of emotions that we've been on, the learning. I mean, I didn't know what FMCG was before I started all that. I didn't know what a SKU was. I didn't know what an SRP was. I mean, the just the vast range of things that I've picked up along the way. I'm personally involved with pitching to every single retailer, so that's always been funny because I'd be in my scrub seeing patients. Obviously, we launched at the start of COVID as well, don't forget. So we launched March 2020. So I'd be like seeing my patients, and then jump into my side room, quick virtual pitch to Sainsbury's, and then back in, and it's just the whole thing's been bizarre. But I mean, I've loved it, to be honest. I mean, it's a hard life, right? Like trying to get product off shelves, especially when you're fighting against the biggest brands in the world, it's a constant uphill battle, and you never feel like you've made it. I thought, honestly, the day when we got Boots was our first listing, and I remember to this day, I found out on my birthday in 2020 that we got the Boots listing. I literally ran around my garden saying we'd made it. I remember like picking up my daughter, like so excited. And and in my head being like, that's it, like that's like job done.
Yep.
And now obviously we're in like Boots, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Ocado, World Duty Free, all sorts, and it still very much feels like an uphill battle. But yeah, it's been an amazing roller coaster. Obviously, we've got Dragon's Den that we were on as well, so that was super intense. I'm sure we'll pick up on that later. But yeah, I've learned a lot, and it's just completely different. And I'm very lucky that I get to have a very varied career. I run my own dental practice, so I can dial up and dial down the number of days that I see patients. So I'm still a part-time clinical dentist, seeing my patients, doing smile makeovers and that sort of thing, but I can play with that diary as suitable with our team to make sure I'm doing everything that needs to be done for PÄRLA as well. But we see great benefit in us still being credible.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like you're on the
dentists.
ground then, right? And you're speaking to customers.
Yeah.
Like how important is that, right? Maintaining that kind of at the coalface sort of work for the brand?
For me, it's really important because I mean, there's a few different angles to it. Firstly, it's the credibility of the fact that we are a lot of people in our space use designed by dentists or recommended by dentists or all that sort of thing. We are the dentists, we are the founders. Like I don't think there's another brand in this country where the founders are the dentists of an oral care brand. And so I know all the cutting edge research. Like I deal with the NPD. Our new mouthwash tabs have got oral probiotics in them. I know everything there is to know about oral probiotics. I know how many bacterial strains there are in the mouth. I know that there's research showing that we see a reduction in the amount of bleeding of the gums if oral probiotics are used alongside good cleaning. So it's all this sort of really live, up-to-date knowledge that if I was no longer a practicing dentist, I would lose out on a lot of that. So that's the consumer facing side of it. From a B2B point of view, we're really, really strong with regards to our brand awareness within the profession. And that's so important because most people still make their toothpaste or their oral care purchasing decisions based on what their dentist or their hygienist recommends. And so I lecture to dentists every month almost. I mean, on Friday, I was lecturing at a big Invisalign conference to 400 dentists in Manchester, and that gives me an opportunity to talk about PÄRLA on all these big stages. So I wasn't booked to talk about PÄRLA. I was talking about the future of dentistry and all of that sort of thing. But within that, I can interweave the sustainability in dentistry message that we're really keen on portraying and sort of proliferating. And where PÄRLA fits into all of that as well. So from a B2B point of view, that's a big part of our strategy to support our listings, especially, is that if someone sees our Facebook ad or they see us on the shelves of Sainsbury's, they can go to their dentist or their hygienist and say, what do you think of PÄRLA? And that dentist knows that what we stand for is products that really work. They contain fluoride, which is vital for dentists and hygienists. They don't contain sodium lauryl sulfate, which is a harmful foaming agent found in most toothpaste. So they know we've made all those decisions with a very critical scientific mind, as opposed to someone who's just come into the space trying to make money, in essence.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I didn't think about it like that. So I suppose it's not dissimilar to pharmaceuticals, right? Where one of the entry points is through the professional, right, or through the profession, through hygienists and dentists. So I'm curious then, how do you look at it in terms of, like, I suppose, general strategy or sales channels or whatever? So you got direct to consumer, website goes direct to consumers. You've got your retail strategy, Boots, Waitrose, etc. Where do the dentists fit into that? Are they part of the direct to consumer strategy, or are they part of the kind of retail strategy, or do they sit in their own kind of like silo?
They've got their own channel. So we do sell direct to dentist, and the dentist can stock in their own clinics. And that's something, and we have ambassadorial schemes, we have affiliate schemes that we're building out. So that's its own channel. And we also sell through dental distributors straight into those practices. So they act, but really for me, I mean, it's never going to be our biggest revenue stream. Really for me, it's a marketing exercise. Because if we have even one SRP in that dental practice, and some samples, they're going to have 10,000 patients coming through their doors every week. And if they see us there and they see us in Sainsbury's or Waitrose or on Facebook or whatever, then for me, that makes sense as being the tipping point. And then on top of that, obviously, we've got huge brand advocates within the industry. So lots of people now are going to their dentist and their hygienist and saying, I'm after a cleaner ingredient deck sustainable toothpaste that works, what would you recommend? Well, PÄRLA is the only answer in that situation, as far as I'm concerned. And so thankfully, we've got a lot of those brand advocates. And I mean, even at the lecture I gave on Friday, a load of people came up to me afterwards saying, when are the mouthwash samples coming out? Because we're desperate to start showing them to our patients, like all of that sort of thing. Like that is, for me, that's the root cause of why we're going to win, as well as the fact that we've got a great brand and a great product and everything else. But it's that core, like, authenticity that the UK dental profession and the dental profession worldwide, because we've got a great network of international dentists as well, but they're behind this brand because they know it's made by dentists for dentists to recommend to their patients with the right ethos behind it, I guess.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, I would have seen it as probably more of a marketing play than a huge sales revenue channel. But it's a really interesting point from like thinking about brands and advocacy and user generated content and all that sort of stuff, to have this other voice within that kind of like space is it's quite rare, really, from a direct to consumer brand perspective. There's not many that have. I think
right? From an FMCG point of view, modeling that we looked at, we looked at the way that Oatly, for example, came up through the baristas. And like we kind of saw it from that angle, that they were the sort of trusted individuals in the space. Like the baristas are, if you see an Oatly at a barista and you've never seen Oatly before, you're like, oh, my like local independent coffee house uses that, it must be good. That was kind of where our head was at. Obviously, this is a bit different in that, like, it's something that's like for your health, so it's a bigger thing.
Yeah, but the same concept exists. You've got this trusted person. I suppose, again, a slight tangent or a slight sidestep in terms of analogy, but dog food would be a similar one, right? My vet recommends this amazing dog food, and you know,
I think Pets Purist went through the vets. Yeah, exactly, same thing.
You touched on something I did want to talk about, and you mentioned we would. Dragon's Den. Tell me about it.
I mean, it feels like a long time ago now, but basically we were on This Morning in 2020 in their plastic free edit. So this is plastic free July, sorry. So July 2020. Everyone was obviously stuck at home at that point. So luckily for us, one of the Dragon's Den researchers was watching This Morning that day. And a couple of weeks later, I'm doing a virtual consultation, a video consultation with a patient, and I get an email pop up on the right-hand side of my video saying, like, Dragon's Den request or something. And I was like, oh, it must be spam. And then, it turns out it's actually Dragon's Den. And so, a lot of due diligence to get actually onto the show. And with COVID and everything as well, we really didn't think we were going to get it over the line. But we did it. And it was 2.5 hours of grilling. So probably the hottest day Manchester's ever seen. It was about 29 degrees. I was wearing the thickest double-breasted suit. So if you've seen the episode, I'm pretty sweaty under the lights. But it was intense, but an amazing experience. We were still very early on in our development. As I said, we launched in March. This was September of 2020 that we actually recorded. So we'd literally done 45 grand's worth of sales. We were not looking for funding. It was very much an opportunity that we couldn't give up on. I think for us, it really worked as a very acute litmus test of, is there demand for this product? Because the response that we had online, both in terms of sales and messages, was just truly spectacular. And it continues to, the market penetration of that show is amazing, given that no one watches TV anymore. I mean, the number of people that come up to me and say, I saw you on Dragon's Den. We were at the Happy Place Festival a couple of weekends ago, and we had so many people coming up to us saying that. So it was amazing. We got 2 offers, one from Deborah, one from Tej Lalvani, who was on the show at the time. They were the 2 dragons that we were after. Deborah because of her sustainability credentials, and Tej because he makes a lot of tablets. And so that would have been a winning combo for us. But they wanted 30% of the business, and we were offering 9%. And we'd actually met up with Nick Jenkins from moonpig.com, who had been on the show before, and he very kindly had sort of given us a mock interview and sort of reinforced for us that our valuation, even though our sales at that point were relatively low, our valuation was still fair. And so I think we came into it with quite a lot of confidence, which meant that we tried to negotiate with the Dragons. They weren't having it, and so we politely declined. But yeah, it was, as I say, it was an incredible experience. I actually was watching it back the other day for some reason, yeah, I'd do it again in an instant. To be honest, I'd love to get in front of Stephen Bartlett, but I don't think they'll take us back for a round two. But yeah, the funny thing is, I always say I like to give everyone a tidbit of the background, but the lift is not real. So you step into the lift and then you step out the other side, which I was shocked at that.
I've had Matt from Fussy on the pod, and he said the exact same thing. So yeah. I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you about the lift. Yeah, it's always curious to me because I always wondered, because the deals that they put forth, or the proposals that the Dragons put forth, are like crazy. Like the amount of business they, for the value, it just doesn't make any sense.
They're not industry standard, are they?
No. But that's why I was curious. Like, do you know if you did actually go ahead with the deal? Do you actually do that deal, or behind the scenes you actually go away and figure out an actual realistic, investment?
No, I think if you say yes, then you're not in a negotiating position. I think a lot of people say the word on the street before you go in there is say yes, because you're more likely to get on the show. Because don't forget, they record a lot more people than actually go on the show. Like Brewdog, for example, I think didn't get even past the producers. Like they recorded it, but they never got on the show. And so they don't give you 100% confirmation that you're going to be on TV until a week before you're actually going live on BBC. And you don't get to see any edits or anything. So they're pretty brutal, the BBC, and how they set it up. Yeah, we were certainly told by a number of previous guests who we met through the whole process that say yes and you're more likely to make the cut. We obviously didn't take that advice, but we still managed to make the cut, so that was fortunate. But I think a lot of people say yes and then they renege on it afterwards. I hear about that quite a lot. Or the due diligence turns out that actually they were just giving it a lot of BS on a lot of their figures and that sort of thing.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm curious then to switch gears back to generally disrupting the industry. My assumption, which you seem to have suggested earlier in the conversation, is that the world that you're trying to disrupt is relatively traditional and maybe a bit archaic. Have you found there's been big challenges? At the same time, it's huge, right? Like, I'm assuming you're taking on some of the biggest CPG companies in the world, right? The Unilevers and etc. How have you found that? Like, is it daunting? Has it been easier than you expected? Like, talk me through taking on like some pretty fucking big companies.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we're in a very fortunate position in our industry that our total addressable market is everyone on the planet. So that's quite positive, and most of the people in the world, hopefully most people in the world use a product such as ours at least once, preferably twice every day.
Yeah.
And so it's a perfect product for a subscription-based brand, because it just makes sense. You see so many subscription brands that just don't make sense, right?
Totally.
Whereas like this product really makes sense as a subscription-based brand, both from a sustainability point of view, but also from a usability point of view. So I think that's the first thing to say. If I was going to have my time again, would I have chosen to try and change a habit that everyone has done twice a day for their whole lives? Or maybe phrase it differently, like, is that the easiest thing to do? No, it's not. Do I think that it's a worthwhile thing to do, and do I think that our product is the true solution to sustainable oral care? 100% yes, I do, because everyone in our space now is trying to say that they're sustainable. You see Colgate, for example, bragging about their recyclable plastic toothpaste tubes, many of which are then held in non-recyclable outer packaging, which I find quite hilarious. But the reality of those tubes, just to enlighten your listeners, is that if you look at the big plastic count from last year, only I think it's 12% of recyclable plastic actually gets recycled. It's less than that from the bathroom, because no one has a recycling bin in their bathroom. If it does get to your local recycling plant in the UK, most of them still aren't accepting this type of plastic. And so they get rejected at the recycling plant. If by in that very small percentage of cases, those toothpaste tubes actually make it into recycling, they can only be recycled a finite number of times before they end up in landfill anyway. So as a best case scenario, you're delaying that plastic hitting landfill for another generation, and then they're going to have to deal with it. And we're using billions of these things every single year. So just think about how that's going to scale up with 8 billion people on the planet. So it's not a solution. Aluminium is slightly better, but still has challenges. And so for us, we wanted to create a real zero to landfill, zero waste solution. And with our compostable bags, glass jar, aluminium lid that's infinitely refillable, if not infinitely recyclable, we think this is the truest solution. And on top of that, it's actually a better way to do it. Like when you get used to it, every tablet has the exact right dose of toothpaste that you're meant to have. It has the exact right dose of all the different ingredients, which means that we can do really cool things like bring in 50% of your recommended daily allowance of vitamin B12 and vitamin E in each of our Pro tablets, which gets absorbed through your gums. And then the blood levels of those vitamins are the same as if you took them as an oral supplement. So because of the blood flow of the gums, you can actually absorb vitamins, certain types of vitamins through your gums. So by controlling the dose with the tablet, we're giving you the right amount every time. And most people don't use the right amount of toothpaste. We've all been trained by Aquafresh in the 80s to use like 18 different stripes of toothpaste on our brush. But normally we're using too much. We're wasting loads. There's the water component as well. I know sort of the water shortage is something that's getting more and more awareness now. But obviously our product's completely waterless. So that's another benefit. And yeah, so I guess the moral of the story is, I've chosen myself a very difficult battle to fight against the biggest brands in the world in a space where everyone's done something a certain way their whole lives. But do I think that we can win it? You're damn right I do. And every iteration of our product that we launch is getting closer and closer to the mouth experience of a traditional toothpaste, which is something that we've, with certain people, struggled with in the early engagement with the brand. In that there's less foam, and the reason there's less foam is because we've chosen to remove the sodium lauryl sulfate, which is a harsh foaming agent that actually causes a lot of trouble in patients' mouths, like from our own anecdotal experiences. But also it's made from palm oil, so from a sustainability point of view, it's not sustainable because it causes deforestation and all the sequelae of that. So that's something that we've battled with and struggled with. But again, we've got we're continually developing on the products, continually making them better, continually trying to make the transition between a paste and a tablet as smooth as possible. And one day soon, we're going to surpass the experience of a paste. And actually, once you get used to it, it's 10 times better anyway. Perfect for travel as well, which I always like to say.
Yeah, I noticed the travel packs. Yeah, great. I mean, no liquid, right? Easy to get through security.
Yeah.
I want to project forward as we close out here, and I suppose I'm curious, like where PÄRLA is in 2 to 3 years. But I'm also curious, getting back to the question, or I mentioned at the start of the conversation, of other brands that are in the kind of I don't know how you describe it, in the bathroom, but they're trying to get rid of single-use plastics, right? So Fussy being one, Life Supplies is another one. How do you see all of that? Like, have you got a vision to go beyond and like sort of start to replace plastics across all of our oral care or in the bathroom? How do you guys look at it?
We are an oral care brand and will always be an oral care brand. I've got no interest personally in going into the deodorant space, into the shower gel space. That's not our area of expertise. And as I've already alluded to, the total addressable market of everyone in the world gives me confidence that we can build a pretty large brand just by focusing on oral care. So yeah, we got lots of respect for everything that Fussy and Wild and these sort of brands are doing in the deodorant space. I'm sure one day they might try and come into our sector, and all I say is bring it on, because this is our space, and we know what we're doing. So as I say, my focus is always on what we're doing, really, and what we want to do is eradicate single-use plastic from oral care, make sure that we're improving oral health across the population, which has still got so much to do. I mean, if you look at the number one cause of kids being hospitalized for general anesthetics, it's to have their teeth taken out for dental decay. So there's a lot of work to do in this space to improve it. And we think that we are perfectly positioned to solve that problem. And that's more than enough of a challenge for me, rather than trying to make people's armpits smell better or anything else in the bathroom location.
So project out 2 years time, where are you guys at? What would it look like?
We've got a lot of exciting NPD coming through, and I can't say too much about that, but it's very much focused on modern health, modern wellness as a whole. And then it's the expansion internationally, really. I think we still feel as though we've got a lot to do in the UK. Like we really need that brand awareness to continue to grow as it has been. And there's obviously a number of other retailers that we'd love to work with. But that's our focus, I think. I've got to be careful what I say, because I'm a bit of an open book and I can get in trouble with my team. We, as I say, we want to be one of the biggest brands in oral care in the UK. I want to be sitting up there alongside Oral-B and Colgate as that level of brand awareness. But for doing things the right way, instead of just being a behemoth of a brand. So we will always stick by our values, our morals, our ethics around ingredients and packaging. All of our packaging is 100% plastic free. All of our ingredients are as clean as I can physically get my hands on, while still being as effective as possible. And as I say, I think that our growth so far has been brilliant. We've got a fantastic team, and I feel very positive about what the future has in store, especially over the next 6 months. We've got quite a lot of NPD coming through, and I'm super excited about it.
Well, watch this space, Simon. I think that's a great way to end the pod. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.